Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Strong Readers Monthly meeting. We are going to give just a few seconds for everyone to get out of the waiting room and ready to start our meeting. Okay, it looks like we have everyone in and ready. So I am Deann Jones. I'm the project director for the Strong Readers Act here in the state of Oklahoma. And I'm sharing my screen with you right now, just kind of looking again at the purpose of the Strong Readers Act. This is a kind of a summary of the purpose from legislation. So the purpose is mostly about strengthening literacy in our state, and we want to ensure that we're providing the appropriate instructional support for our students, as well as communicating all of this very clearly with the families of our students. Get into today's agenda. So once again, I'm Deann Jones. I'm the project director for Strong Readers, and we have Melissa Algram on with us, who is the program director for literacy policy and programs here at the state. And the first thing we want to go over today that we had a few updates to is our Science of Reading PD. So we've recently reviewed and added some new courses to the approved Science of Reading PD. I'm going to click on this just to kind of show you what it looks like when you go onto our website to look at this, with our website all looking a little bit different now. So when you go to our literacy professional development page, if you have a vendor who you are wanting to apply to be on our approved course, this is where you would direct them to go, and they can do that by completing this form right here. And the due dates that we have for these, we have a due date of April 25th coming up, and then we have a due date of October 31st. So that's the two due dates we have during the year for a vendor to apply. And then we review them, and we would add any new ones that are approved from our April deadline would be posted by June 6th. And any that we approve from the October deadline would be posted by January 9th of next January. So that's our two due dates we have. So if you have any professional development that you would like to have at your school, and you would like to see if it could be approved to be part of your 10% requirement, that is how you could get your vendor to apply for those. This is our Airtable down here, and this is where you can find all of the professional development that is approved for Strong Readers funds to count as your 10% requirement. So we do have a few new ones on here, but I just wanted to kind of show you the Airtable. And I also want to give a little reminder that if you have other professional development, literacy related professional development that you would like to do at your school, and it is not on this approved list, you can still use Strong Readers funds for that. It just would not count as your 10% requirement. So there is a requirement that you have to, if you're a district that receives $2,500 or more of Strong Readers funds, you have to spend 10% of that on approved professional development. So that would be the table that I just showed you. But you could spend you could also spend your Strong Readers money on other professional development that's literacy related. It's just that if it's not on one of these approved ones, it would not count as part of your 10% requirement. So we did add a few new ones. You can see these listed right here. We have a new one from the Stern Center. We have a new one from Reading Horizons. We have actually two new ones from Reading Horizons. We have Building Momentum, and we have Science of Reading Training. Those are both from Reading Horizons. So those were both added this time. And then we have one from Sterling Literacy Consulting. And then we also added an Amira one to this. So the Amira one that was approved is the Amira Certified Educators. This one does not have a registration fee. So if you're in Amira school, you go into their training, and this would not have a registration fee. But if you want to have your teachers train in this, it does take about 3 hours to complete, and you could give them a stipend for completing this outside of their contract hours, and then that stipend could count toward part of your 10% requirement. So this one is added to the approved list, and it would be allowed to count as a 10% requirement, but just reminder that what would be counting towards the 10% would be the stipend that you could provide for your teachers for completing this. So that's all we have about the Science of Reading PD. We had quite a few questions come up last month. Some we addressed, and there were a few that we needed a little bit more time before we addressed them, or maybe we noticed them later on. So I was just going to spend a little time talking about some of the questions that we had from last month that came up. So one of the questions was asked about, can we add a mirror to the approved PD list? And yes, we did that. That is done. That is already on the Airtable, the chart, if you go to our website now. And once again, you could use stipend money, the money used for stipends, to count as your 10%. So we did get that one taken care of. Another question that some of you asked were about instructional coaches, and can we pay instructional coaches with strong readers funds? So after some discussion, this is what our answer is yes, you can pay your instructional coaches with strong readers funds if they meet these qualifications. So your coach would have to be spending at least 80% of their time working with students or teachers on literacy instruction, not administrative tasks. And if they meet that qualification, that they are spending at least 80% of their time on literacy instruction with students or teachers, then you could pay their salaries with strong readers funds. We had quite a few questions coming into us about summer school rules, because with some of the changes in the legislation, summer school, the Reading Academy had certain restrictions that it had to meet for it to count as a pathway to promotion. If you had a student that you was not performing at the end of the year and you sent them to summer school and then you were going to retest at the end, it had to meet some certain qualifications. Since those rules have changed, we looked back at the summer school rules, and most of them have held, and this is what our summer school rules will be for this coming summer. So in order to use strong readers funds for summer school, your summer school must meet the following conditions. You must provide at least 3 hours of literacy instruction a day for 4 days a week for 4 weeks. It must be taught by teachers who have completed a Science of Reading training approved by one of our OSD vendors, or they're a certified reading specialist. So this could be, any of your teachers who've gone through letters, or the Lit Cop that's offered through the state, or any of this other Science of Reading training that is on the table that I just showed you from our website. If your teachers have completed any of those things, or they're a certified reading specialist, then they would be qualified to teach your summer school, and for that summer school to be paid for with strong readers funds. Another question is, are we required to provide summer school? You are not required to provide summer school. It is highly recommended, but we understand that in some cases you may not have the funds to pay for summer school, or you may not even have a large enough amount of your students who need summer school to make it feasible for you to offer it. So it is not a requirement. These stipulations are only the requirements that would need to be met if you are using strong readers funds to pay for your summer school. And this is also related to summer school. One of you brought this question up in our last meeting, and I am glad you did, because it allowed us to think through some questions about our summer school report that we had not thought through about this yet. And so we've thought this through and already talked to the people who are making our report, and this is our answers on the summer school report. So the question was, will the summer school report be done by site or district? And so the answer is it will be done by site. So you would go into single sign-on, and each elementary site would fill out their own summer school report. So if you have a situation where several sites are combining to offer summer school at only one site, so say you have 3 elementary schools, and you're only going to offer summer school at one school, but you may have students from all 3 elementaries attending that summer school, What we want you to do is we want only the host school to report the numbers. So all the other sites would still have to fill out the summer school report, but if it is not hosted at their building, they would just need to click the option at the top of the report that is going to say did not offer summer school. So the sites that are non-hosting would click did not offer summer school, and then the hosting site would report the numbers for all the students that would attend the summer school, regardless if they're enrolled at that site or if they're at the other sites in the district. The host site would report all of the numbers. So hopefully that'll answer some of our questions about the summer school report. We also have had multiple questions through emails and some during the meeting as well about ongoing interventions for 4th and 5th grade. So because of our, previously it was due to if they passed 3rd grade on probation or one of the good cause exemptions. With this year's 3rd graders, that's not going to be, that won't be happening because 3rd grade promotion retention is based on district policies, not state anymore. So what this is going to look like going forward into next year is we will still be providing interventions for 4th and 5th graders who need them. And our procedure is going to be the following. If a student finishes this year, if a student finishes 3rd grade on a slip, they finish 3rd grade, they're on a slip, and they're still scoring below benchmark at the beginning of 4th grade. So they finished 3rd grade, not on grade level, they're on a slip. Going into 4th grade, you're going to test that student again. And if they are still below benchmark, then you're going to place them on a slip for 4th grade. Same thing for 5th grade. So they would continue receiving interventions until they are determined to be meeting a grade level target, or until 6th grade, at which time you can transition them to a district intervention plan. Interventions in 4th and 5th grade, and this isn't a change, this is the way it was before. 4th and 5th grade are different from K through 3 in that if they are on an IEP in 4th and 5th grade, you can document their interventions on their IEP and they do not have to have a slip plan. So just remember that is different for 4th and 5th grade than it is for K through 3. In K through 3, even if they're on an IEP, they have to have a slip detailing their reading and literacy interventions. And then another thing that I have been seeing still lots of confusion about is the notice of proficiency. Those are brand new this year. We've had lots of confusion around them. So I just want to kind of go over this one more time. The notice of proficiency is only for students who are scoring at or above the 60th percentile rank on your screening. It only needs to be sent out at the beginning and middle of the year. The point of the proficiency is to tell the parents that their student is scoring proficiently and that they are unlikely to need intervention during that school year. So you would not need to be sending those out at the end of the after end of the year testing, because your school year is almost over and you wouldn't be adding interventions at that point anyway. So these would only go out at the beginning and middle of the year, and they only go out one time per year per student. So if you have student who's already met the 60th percentile at the beginning of the year and then they meet it again at mid-year, they don't need another notice of proficiency. That parent has already been notified at the beginning of the year. They don't need to get another one at mid-year. So the only students you should be sending a notice of proficiency to at middle of year are the students who were not at 60th percentile at the beginning of the year, but they have progressed until the point where at mid-year, they are scoring 60th percentile. And so then you would be required to send that notice of proficiency to the parents of those students. And we do have a sample document for notice of proficiency on our website if you are needing to use that notice of proficiency. It is on our website. Speaking of the website, as many of you know, in January, it got a massive overhaul. And while that was going on, we lost a lot of our strong readers pages were temporarily lost. And all of our forms and documents had reverted back to the way they were in June. But that has all been restored now. So all of these resources are restored and they are now available on our Strong Readers pages. And I have linked all of our Strong Readers pages here for you. We have Strong Readers Act page. We have the Strong Readers legislation, Strong Readers for Schools, which is where you would find all of our guidance, documents, and forms. And then we have Strong Readers for Families, and we do have a few family notification forms on that page as well. So before I move on to the professional development opportunities, because Melissa's going to kind of talk about those, let's just take a minute to see, Melissa, if we had any questions.
You know, I think everyone's keyboards are broken today.
The chat says it's disabled.
Yes.
Interesting.
Oh,
I wonder how that happened. I was wondering why it was so quiet.
I did not do that on purpose. Let me see.
I do have a question while we're trying to figure that out. Can I just say it out loud?
Of course, Kristen.
Hi. So on summer school in our district, we do offer summer school, but it goes through Title I because we use our Strong Readers money for some specific tutoring. So if we're not using Strong Readers dollars, do you still want us to report summer school numbers, or do you want us to do that anyway, even though it's not Strong Readers dollars that we're using?
Yes, we'd like you to report it.
Okay.
Because the point behind the report, the ask in legislation, is to see how many students are engaging in summer school and how that growth could be regardless of funding source.
Okay. Do you think they'll ever add, well, never mind, I'm just asking for an extra report. Never mind. I don't want to do that. Everybody in this chat would want to crucify me if I ask that, but I think we just
You heard it first. Any additional reports? Kristen Hennis.
No, I did not. No, I did not. I just we're just looking at our data. We grow kids more in a tutoring than we did in summer school. So that's
understood.
So it may
So I do know, and I will tell you, like with our high dosage tutoring program, we are pulling those numbers so that we can see the growth there, and that can help us to inform any asks of the legislature in the future. So if those are things that you're seeing, you know, we always love it when people share data of what is working with us and those details of how they put that in place, because you know, when you've got something that's working, why not share it with the whole world so that we can see how that's going? So, oh, now our keyboards are working. There's Gail. I knew something was wrong if Gail wasn't adding to the chat. Is the proficiency notice for first through third?
Yes, yes. We do not send the proficiency notices for kindergarten. So it is first through third only.
Okay. If a student has benchmarked K through 3 and then does not benchmark in 4th grade for the first time, do they need to be on a slip?
No, you do not. You're welcome to use the slip if you would like to, and it would be recommended to get to you know, be providing interventions for those students, but it is not required because with Strong Readers, you are only really required to be doing the screening for K through 3, and you're placing those students who are scoring below on that screening on a slip. So those 4th graders would not have to be added to one. But if you have a student who's below and you're wanting to provide interventions for them, you are certainly welcome to go ahead and use that form to document any interventions you'd be providing, but it would not be required by law.
So I think this is where we need to make sure that we're understanding the difference between requirements under state law versus what we would do for a child to make sure they're moving forward. So the questions that we're answering is what is required under state law, under the Strong Readers Act. And I think just to reiterate what Deann said, you know, when you discover that a child that's above 3rd grade is struggling, it is most certainly best practice and an ethical issue when we're as teachers to make sure that we're meeting their needs. And obviously we document that in whatever way. but it is not a requirement under the law. Just want to make sure everyone's very clear on the difference. We're not saying don't intervene past third grade. We're just saying of what you're required to do and then how we document that. Okay. Let me come back to another question. Kathy Gilliam, I think you're going to have to explain this one to me. It says immigrant summer school. Kathy, are you where you can talk? Because I don't think I understand your question. Okay, well, we'll come back to that. And Kathy, if you're not where you can talk or chat right now, then you can send us an email and we'll see what's going on and we can always address it as we can. Okay, instructional coaches can be paid with strong readers funds if they are with students or teachers 80% of the time. Do interventionists follow the same rule? Deann, are you frozen? Oh, there you are.
Oh, yes, it is kind of freezing some. I'm saying my connection is unstable. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. If you need to turn off your camera.
Yes, okay. I don't know why it's doing that. Yes, I would think so. I mean, it seems like your interventionists would be spending 80% of their time with students. Usually they're spending a higher percent of their time with students than that. But I think you could still put that. I think that would be a good guideline to go by. That.
So, and Melissa, as we're thinking about this, we know that
80%
in
of your
some
time, if you're,
districts,
yeah.
in some districts, instructional coaches are used as a stepping stone to administration, and they often get pulled into administrative tasks. And so if we're talking about somebody who is actually acting more as an assistant principal rather than a coach who is furthering that education or working with students, then that's really where that's coming from. But interventionists, by virtue of their job, unless they're doing things like spending most of their time on recess duty, lunchroom duty, things like that, that are not focused on reading intervention, then that becomes an issue. I think that's more of an issue of that needs to be discussed district-wide of the use of resources.
The reason I asked that is because I just know they would need to do some administrative tasks for the intervention, like grouping kids,
Correct.
looking at data. So that's acceptable.
That makes sense. I
Okay,
mean, 80% of the time is 1 day a week.
Okay.
And if we're spending a day a week or 2 hours a day, more than that, I mean, having been a coach myself, knowing that, you know, a lot of times if I'm spending more times than that, I probably need to be reevaluating how I'm doing my job, because the job description of a coach or an interventionist is really working with those coaches or those teachers or students, sorry. Okay, next question. When does the 10% of the Strong Readers Fund need to be spent by for that required professional development?
So your strong readers funds are allowed to be carried over year to year, but you really need to be showing that you are spending 10% of that per year. Melissa, you might have to help me with this because I don't know if we have a set date because of the way our funds come in. It's not on your typical school year, fiscal year, like most of your funds come in, since you don't really get your funds until December, January. Melissa, what do you think?
We had said in the past, knowing that the fiscal year ends June 30th, but often professional development runs over the course of the summer. And so what we had stated when we first instituted this portion of the legislation was that by the beginning of the following school year, this needed to be spent down for that 10%. Which would allow for like July professional development, things like that to take place.
There is a question about if we removed any professional development, and I did not think that we did. Let me see which one.
Deanna, we can check on that. The Reading League should still be on there. Those knowledge blocks.
They're still on. The Reading League is still on there. I just looked. There are still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Reading League courses listed on our chart.
Okay, it was probably just a user error. Sorry.
I do that all the time. Can strong readers money be used for travel expenses to attend professional development?
Yes. So, yes, it can, and it could count as your 10% requirement. So if you have people who are traveling to, attend a professional development that is on our approved list, you can count, their registration for any of that. You can count their travel, hotel. You are not allowed to count meals. So you would not be allowed to count their per diem, but you could count their hotel, travel expense, and registration. If it is during, a school day when you're having to provide a substitute, you can also count the pay that you're paying the substitute while that teacher is gone, as part of your 10%.
Okay, Kathy came back with her question. She said, we have a summer school for our immigrants. Do I report it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why that would be any different, right? It's a summer school. We're providing interventions for them. Yeah, I'm assuming if they're enrolled students in your district, then then you are providing that for them. And yeah, we want to count those in our summer school numbers.
So Kathy, if there's more details to this that we need to discuss, I would say just shoot us an email at literacy@sde.ok.gov. It's at the top of that agenda. And we can look into like maybe what the specifics are there. So back to notice of proficiency. If a student makes the 60th percentile at beginning of year, but falls below the 60th the rest of the year, do we pull that notice?
So there's no need to pull the notice. I mean, the notice is just something that you notified that parent. There's no need to try to, you don't have to take that back out of your file. That is something that you notified them of. The only thing that if they're falling, the only thing I would say is that if they're falling, down to the 55th or they're falling to the 50th, that's fine. You just keep monitoring them. There's no need to send the parent a different notice about that. But now if they fall below the 40th, to where now they're needing to get some interventions, then you wouldn't necessarily be pulling that notification, that notice, but you are going to be needing to notify the parents. If you had a student that got that proficiency notice in August, and then you test them in December or January, and they're going below the 40th, first of all, you're going to need to double check and make sure that that's a valid score, because that would be a pretty big drop. But if you decide you need to test them again and they test the same, or you decide that that is a more accurate score of what you think that student's capable of, then you definitely need to notify that parent. You would need to put a slip in place for them at mid-year if that's the case. So that would be your new notification to the parents. It's not necessarily pulling the proficiency notice, but if they're, so answer is no, you don't have to pull that notice. But then the other part of that is if they're dropping somewhere in the 50th or 40th, but not below 40th, then you just keep working with that kid and monitoring them. But if they're going below that 40th, then you do have to notify the parents and have them put on a slip.
All right. So any student that's on a slip in 3rd grade and does not benchmark by end of year must be put on a slip in 4th or 5th grade until they benchmark, correct?
Yes, and that will, like we said, that is kind of new for this year because previously we were doing it only for students who did not pass. We were only doing it for students who did not pass the OSTP or didn't pass the screener. And so now, since we're not having RSA criteria, that's going to look a little different for this year's 3rd graders going into school next year. So now it will be any 3rd grader who was on a slip in 3rd grade at the end of the year. And then going into 4th grade, they're still not scoring on grade level. They will need to be on a slip in 4th or 5th, unless they're on an IEP. So remember that 4th and 5th graders have that caveat of if they're on an IEP for literacy reading purposes and have already goals in their IEP for reading, then you can just document those interventions on their IEP for 4th and 5th grade.
Okay, regarding summer school, are there any distinctions between K2 versus 3 through 5 offerings?
The rest of that question. Our question that we're going to be asking you is only going to be dealing with K through 3. as far as the numbers that we're getting from you. So that would be, I don't think we're gonna be asking about 4th and 5th grade, but we will be asking the K-3 numbers. And then as far as using Strong Readers funds, you could still be using Strong Readers funds for those 4th and 5th graders, because we need to keep continuing to give those students some intervention. So I would think summer school would count as an intervention for those students. And so we would need to, if you're using Strong Readers funds, it would still need to follow those same stipulations that we gave with the hours and days. Let me
Okay.
see, there's another question.
Then a follow-up question to that is, can paraprofessionals work with a science of reading trained teacher during summer school and be paid with those funds? And if yes, do the paras have to be science of reading trained as well?
Melissa, you may have to help me on this one. I would think that you could use paras during summer school, but they should not be the one giving them the direct instruction. So they might be helping with groups as long as the well-trained teacher is the one giving the explicit instruction. Melissa, do you have anything to clarify?
I
for the
think
paras?
that's something that we will probably need to clarify with our legal and get back with you on that, Claudia. And just make sure that everyone's staying, because it's only talked about our certified teachers. It has not addressed paras outside the use of requirement for a student on an IEP, obviously, you know, if it's required that they have. But if we're talking about paras for providing additional instruction, that's something that we'll need to look at and follow up with you on. Okay, another question. Do we need to only put 4th and 5th graders that were on a slip in 3rd grade on a slip in 4th and 5th grade if they don't score above the 40th percentile on the beginning of year? And is this required by state law?
Yes, I'm not looking at that question, but yes. So same thing I've said, the law does say that you will, what the law says, that you will continue to provide interventions for these 4th and 5th graders. And so the way you are providing the interventions, and the slip is used to document those interventions. So yes, that is required under the Strong Readers Act. And yes, if they score above the 40th percentile, then that means they would no longer be on one, because what the legislation says is that they would continue to receive their interventions until they have been determined to be performing on a grade level benchmark. So if they're performing at above the 40th percentile, then that would make it where you do not have to have them on a slip anymore.
So think of it this way. If I have two 3rd grade students, both of them left 3rd grade on a slip, still not performing where they needed to be. Student 1 scored at the 50th percentile at the beginning of year of 4th grade. Then they're where we want them to be. Yippee, we do not have to be on a slip. Now, if we're continuing to provide intervention, that's a district decision. Certainly able to do so, not required under state law. Student 2 at the beginning of year of 4th grade scores at the 35th percentile. They are still demonstrating risk for reading deficiency, and so they need to continue to be on a slip under state law and providing those services. So hopefully between what Deann said and what I said, that helps clear that up, because I know we're having several people coming back to that question. So we're trying to make sure that we're very clear on that. Kristen in Broken Arrow is wanting to know if there's any districts training their own facilitators, locally certified facilitators in letters. I know that Deann Jones in Enid has some that she has said. I do know that Amber, I think if you're on here, I saw you. Putnam City has some. Believe Norman and Rosales is usually on here. Has a few. So there are a few I know about.
Are they in the middle of getting them trained? So we started training 5, and then they have changed, and now have a minimum of 10 that you have to have before. So we paid for them to come in and train 5, and they finished volume 1. And then when we went to book for volume 2, they said now we have to have a minimum of 10. We paid 25. I'm just going to be very
Is this under the same contract, Kristen?
so they won't they made that change after we had signed the first one, thinking we thought we were going to get to do 1 year and then turn around the second year. They won't grandfather us in. So something
it.
that cost us 25,000 for 5 now will be 17,000 a facilitator. And so
Okay.
anyway, they said if we found another district that needs to train their volume 2s, we could combine and get a better deal. So that's why I'm like, but
I got it.
I don't know
So
what to
I'm
do.
I'm going to put that out there. If you are able to put in the chat that you are currently needing to train some people on volume 2 as a facilitator, let us
Gotcha.
know, or you can email that our literacy box and we will forward that on to Kristen. I know Miss Jones has had hers for quite a while.
Yeah.
Since we've got 2 Kristens here, so has Amber. So I do know that there's some things to look at, and if you need to talk to me afterwards, Kristen, just give me a holler. You know how to get
Okay.
a hold of me.
Okay.
So,
Perfect. Thank you.
okay. Can Strong Readers funds, the 10% specifically, be used to pay for subs so I can train teachers during the contract day? And I believe you did answer that, Deann. That was a absolutely yes. Is the dyslexia awareness course on the Reading League Oklahoma for the 10% funds? I believe we were saying all of those knowledge blocks under the Reading, the Reading League Oklahoma. Sorry, never mind. Dyslexia awareness. I'm not sure that the Reading League Oklahoma has a dyslexia awareness. There's a webinar that's happening. That's not like an interactive professional development course. Gail, you might check to see if there's something that I'm spacing over. Okay, we'll come back to that. So really we'll just reiterate that professional literacy professional development page where Deann showed us the Airtable. If it's on there, it's a yes for registration and any associated costs. The only thing that we cannot pay for is per diem on that for that 10%. If it's not on there, we know how to tell vendors to apply. Even if it's a nonprofit, they can still apply to have it reviewed. It's a very short application, so it's not that big of a deal. They don't have to be a big business. But one of the things, be aware of, we're not, the requirement for that is not just every single little tiny webinar that we might go to that addresses science of reading. That for this is really more of a course that we're looking at. So like when we do our literacy communities to practice, there's some interaction that's going on there. A lot of the courses on there are usually at least 3 hours that's happening at minimum. So we're really kind of delving into that because there are a ton of webinars. My calendar, I could be spending 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, doing nothing but listening to podcasts and going to webinars on science of reading related options because the research is so vast. So we do have some different requirements that are on there as far as the depth that it goes into and the length of time, because that 45 minutes, hour-long webinars usually is just scratching the surface on some of those things. Let's see, coming back to some of our questions. What program will the summer school report be under on the state single sign-on?
That is going to be on single sign-on, and it's going to be under the Strong Reader Survey. The same way you are already doing your beginning of the year report and the end of the year report, there will just be an additional tab now that will be a summer school report.
Okay. And do we need to keep a copy of the proficiency notice in the student's permanent file, or are we only sending it home?
I would definitely keep a copy of it in their file so that you have it on, so that you have notice of where you've notified the parent as well.
Okay. How long do we need to keep records of students that have remediation or a slip documentation? What we have always advised in the past is legally we would always keep our records for at least 5 years. But for a slip or any notice of promotion, like when we were under RSA, we would keep that for the duration of that student's school career as part of their permanent record. I'm sure many of you have seen some of the lawsuits that have come out in the last year or two of students suing a district because they've graduated and they have not learned how to read. And having those types of things in their file is important for a district to be able to demonstrate these are the efforts that we as a district have gone to make sure that this child was able to get a free and appropriate public education. So I would definitely keep that for the duration. So let's see. Oh, as far as Kristen Hennis, Stillwater and Middale also has some letters facilitators. I don't know if they're in the middle of that or not, but you might reach out to Deann or Melissa Dalton in Middale. Okay, back to Gail's question. Can dyslexia awareness from the Reading League? If we're talking about the National Reading League, I'm just going to go back to the thing. If that course is listed on the Airtable, then yes, it can be used for the 10%. If it's not listed on the Airtable, then at this point it has not been reviewed and approved. If there are any school districts in the Muskogee area that are using Amira, can I contact you for more information? We'd like to see the program implemented. And this is Analia, which you're near Muskogee. I would like to, it sounds like a great time to segue to the last item in our agenda real quick, Deann, if you don't mind. Is the professional development opportunities that we have. And so working with Amira, we do have a data dive webinar. If you have been on the webinars with Amira, this is about an hour, 30 minutes to an hour, in which they will go through the different reports that are offered, how to set this up. And it is not an open forum for question and answer. It is a webinar where you are just listening and gaining that information. So you get some general idea. So if you have not yet explored Amira and would like to have an idea of what this looks like, this would be a great opportunity for you to log in to do so. You can see the registration link is on the agenda that Deann is showing. It's there in green. They are also going to host 2 user forums. And so the user forums will be in March 11th and March 12th. March 11th in Muskogee, there will be a morning option from 9 to 11 and an afternoon option from 1 to 3. Same in Yukon on March 12th, 9 to 11, and then 1 to 3. So you can choose if morning works better for you or afternoon. They will have lunch, kind of a grab and go provided. And during this time, this will be an opportunity for users of Amira, as well as those who are wanting to learn more, to come together, talk about the things that have been working, problem solve through issues that maybe are still a struggle, as well as to collaborate with other districts that are in the same place as you are, as you're looking at where you need to be in that journey and how that can help you with also setting up your MTSS framework where Amira fits in, because we know that that is also something that we are working on statewide, is to get that MTSS framework going. And screening is a very important part of that. So we do not have the links yet. Amira is sending those links to us by the end of the week. So we will be pushing those links out through our newsletters and hopefully on our website. We're trying to make sure that we can get things updated on our website timely. It takes a little bit longer with the new changes, as I'm sure you're aware. So we will get those out to you, so that will give you an opportunity to reach out. So Italy, with there in the Muskogee area, right there next to you on March 11th, if anybody is there able to attend for that couple of hours there. I see also that there are several friends who have told let you know that you can connect with them in Owasso, Bartlesville, Sepulpa, and Warner. So Angela and Kelly and Danya and Charlotte, thank you for reaching out and letting them know that they can. It's always a lot easier when we have a community working together, and I greatly appreciate everyone's support on that. So, okay. let's see here.
Melissa, there's a
Oh.
question about the Amira forums, and is there a charge to attend?
There is not. Anything with Amira is free to attend. We have that part of our state contract to be able to provide additional support and training for our teachers to be able to use that. Will Amira be offered again free next year? I can guarantee that the screener part will absolutely be available. We do have that funding. We are working to see how we would be able to do the learning platform for everyone, but we definitely know that we do have that in our budget for the screener for K-3 to be available as we're, or actually K-5, as we're continuing to move forward in the next school years. We have a 10-year contract renewable each year, and I don't see why that would be canceled at any time soon. Let's see, will we be funding the reading tutor part? Yeah, that's the part we're still working on. At this point, I don't have it secured, but I'm never going to say never, but I cannot guarantee anything right now. Let's see. I think we have come to the end of our questions. Oh, is there a requirement to offer summer school to kindergarten?
We do not have a requirement to offer summer school for any grade level under strong readers. So it's just like we said with the other grades. It's obviously we'd love to see you be offering summer school, and that could be including kindergarten as well, but it is not required.
Okay. Well, it looks like we've hit everybody, but we'll stick around a few minutes in case somebody's got a last minute question, or if if we accidentally missed something. Otherwise, hope everyone stays warm. Looks like we're getting some more winter weather this week, especially for those of you up north of I-40. Stay safe, please. We would like to see you all back again next month, because we just can't afford to lose any of you wonderful people. And everyone have an amazing Valentine's Day. Know that you are well loved by all of us here in the literacy department at OSDE. So take some time for yourself, please.
Bye, everyone.